There are books on books on books on how to meet the love of your life, how to manifest the human of your dreams, how to flirt, how to get into romantic relationships, but there is very little on friendships. Not having many friends, struggling to make friends is this weirdly taboo topic. I believe that friendships are just as important as romantic relationships, if not more important. High quality friends have an impact on your mental health, your physical health, your general quality of life, and so much more. But I also think that making friends can be hard, and that's not something that people often talk about. This is a universal problem, and the number of messages that I've received asking me to make a video on how to make new friends and how to meet new people is testament to that, as well as the amount of people I've talked to in real life that have struggled with this in passing, acquaintances as well as friends. To be clear, I am not an expert on making friends by anyone's standards. I feel a bit audacious even making this video, but I am someone who has struggled to make friends in the past, that now has like a really good close handful of friends that I love. And I also think a lot about relationships and friendships, and I have a lot to say about this topic. However, if you're listening to this and like, I cannot relate to a single word that you're saying, I make new friends every single week. I have a million high quality friendships. I am very looking forward to hearing your comments, thoughts, and advice in the comments section. I actually love hearing advice from people who just make friends really easily all of the time, because you have such an interesting and good mindset about it. So please do leave your comments in the comment section below. Let's talk about the number one reason that you might not be making friends. While there's a huge variety of reasons why you might be struggling to make friends, one of the number one reasons that I see for most people is a lack of opportunity. The most common friendships that you will see around you in your life, likely the most common friendships that you have, if you do have a few, are from repeated exposure that led to friendship. For example, I have a friend who has worked mostly at businesses that have young women her age who all have similar interests. So she has the most friends of any of the people that I know. If you work from home, you work in an organization where there are no common values or interests, it's just a huge variety of people that may even be opposed to your values and interests, you're going to find it more difficult to make friends just because of lack of opportunity. It's not that there's something wrong with you, it's literally environmental design for friendships. All it means is that you need to take responsibility for creating environments where it's more possible for you to create those friendships. Then there's reason number two on why you might be struggling to make friends. The next most likely reason that you're struggling to make friends is that you're not really trying. The reality is that friendships, particularly as you move into adult life, if you're in your 20s, they are harder. Like, they require more work, they require more time, more energy. It's a lot like dating. Going from a place of not knowing an individual, not really caring about their personal life, to knowing a whole lot about them and actually caring about them, there are so many steps in between that, especially if you're not repeatedly exposed to those people on a daily or weekly basis so that you're forced to forge those friendships. Creating new friendships requires an openness to new friendships in your life, a willingness to put yourself out there, time, and energy. I have a friend that I actually wouldn't be friends with today if she hadn't been willing to put in the time and energy and persistence. The fact that she literally put in work to make our friendship happen, and she'll attest to this. She was asking me for coffee regularly, asking me to go out to lunch, getting us hanging out on the weekends. And if she hadn't put in that work to put herself out there and ask me to hang out on a regular basis, we wouldn't be friends today. And she is one of my best friends. I didn't immediately meet her and click with her and think this is gonna be a friend for life, because that doesn't usually happen. Friendships build over time as you get to know people, and first impressions are often wrong. For me, I used to have a really poor mindset around friendships, and that I was like, if I'm not immediately friends with this person, if I don't immediately love them and care deeply about all of their personal issues and stories, then they're not the friend for me. And that is where a lot of people go wrong. And after listening to those top two reasons, you might go back to that lack of opportunity and be like, well, that's it. That's all it is for me. But be very careful with that, because that can be a very good excuse. In these current times, you do have some better excuses for not putting yourself into those situations. But as for your whole life and the last 5 years of your life, not so much. It's entirely possible that there are people in your life, colleagues, friends of friends, acquaintances, that could in fact be potential friends. But if you're not open and willing to pursue new friendships, to almost date people and become friends, then it's going to be more difficult for you to make friends. Being open to friendships. Now I want to talk about what the process of making friends can look like. God, that's such a Michelle way to talk about friendships. You guys know me. I don't know. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just the way I am. Step one of being open to friendships is letting people know that you like them and just letting them know that they're good in your mind. This is probably one of the best ways to be liked by people in general, and also create an openness to friendship, because when people think that you like them, they automatically will like you more. This is called reciprocal liking, and psychology shows us over and over again that if people think that they are liked, then they are more likely to like back. A good friend of mine, and also the friendliest person that I know, told me a few years ago that the #1 way that she makes friends so quickly is by reacting to people's Instagram stories and liking their Instagram posts and commenting on occasion. She also said recently, when we were having a conversation about this topic, I treat everyone like they are a close friend unless they give me a reason not to. And that is a killer way to live your life in order to attract friendships. I'm not particularly good at taking that action regularly in terms of responding, reacting to people's stuff, liking on Instagram. Doesn't really come naturally to me. However, when I do it, because after she told me that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. I would react to people's stuff, and then I'd find they'd start reacting to my stuff. All of a sudden, we'd have little mini conversations in DMs. And some of these were people that I was like, I don't know if that person really likes me very much. And it turned out they were absolutely okay with me. It's just that I needed to sort of extend a branch first and be like, hey, I like you. In an article that I read on making friends, actually, after I wrote the script for this video, they featured a study from the 1980s. This study led a bunch of volunteers to believe that the partner that they were interacting with did really like them, and as a result, they behaved in ways that were more likely to lead to them being liked. They shared more about themselves, they disagreed less, and they had a generally more positive attitude. So this suggests if you go into a social situation with a mindset of, I am liked, these people like me, people are more likely to like you. A lot of these things just end up coming back to mindset. So firstly, if you're in a process of trying to make more friends, make it really clear that you like people. Follow them on Instagram, react to their stories, and also just in person, be very nice to them and treat them like you would a friend. This isn't necessarily going to gain you deep friendships, however, it's a good place to start and start a foundation. Being standoffish and making it unclear as to whether you like people leads to people being unsure about you, and it closes you off to new friendships. Try to embrace a mindset of being open to new friendships and a mindset of people like me, I'm liked. My socially anxious folk, I know that that's a very broad statement and it's also very hard to embrace, but it's one to consider working on. Consider deepening existing relationships. One of the most underrated ways to make friends, in my opinion, is to rekindle old friendships. I'm not talking about people that you cut off intentionally because they were bad for your mental health. I'm talking about people that you lost touch with for no real good reason. Likely something related to location, lack of repeated exposure, they moved jobs, changed locations, etc. One of my absolute closest friends, we went to Europe together for 6 weeks. We know most things about each other. I love her to death. But we also knew each other in high school, and in high school we weren't that close. We lost touch straight after high school. For a year we didn't speak. If she hadn't rekindled the friendship and touched base with me and said, hey, do you want to go see the One Direction movie? It was great. We wouldn't be friends today. And we're really, really close. Like, imagine if she hadn't rekindled that old friendship. You probably have a small list of people that you know, acquaintances, people that you're kind of close with but not really close with, that you could touch base with and get coffee with. It might be awkward, it might be weird, maybe you have absolutely nothing in common now, you're completely different people, who bloody knows? However, the worst that could come out of it is a 30-minute semi-awkward coffee chat. Or they turn you down, which is pretty unlikely. Most people are pretty open to hanging out, and it's also just not a big deal. To make friends, you need to become the asker. If you want to make friends, you do need to be ready to put yourself out there, and I mean that in terms of putting yourself into situations where you might expose yourself to a new friendship, and also being the asker. If you're not confident socially, it is scary and vulnerable to ask someone to hang out. I've gone through that before, and for me it's always this thing of like, oh, but do they even like me enough to hang out with me? I'm not sure. Like, I 100% understand the thought process that you could go through with that. But generally people are far more open to hanging out with you than you would think. Most people will probably be like, yeah, sure, why not? Unless there's a very good reason not to hang out with you. A lot of other people are also struggling to make friends and want more quality friendships in their life. But the only way to make friendships is to put yourself out there and to create situations where friendships can happen. Now let's talk personality traits. I did want to take a second at the end of this video to talk about some personality traits that might hinder your ability to make friendships. To be clear, I think that no matter how odd, different, unique you may be, there is someone else out there that will make an amazing friend for you, because there are lots of odd, different, and unique people. No matter your personality type, even if you have the personality traits that I'm mentioning, there are going to be so many people in this world who will absolutely adore and love you. The reason that I want to talk about these personality traits is because they are traits that I have personally witnessed across multiple people who have talked to me about struggling to make friends, or who I've just visibly seen struggle to make friends. However, for the most part, people watching this video, especially if you've reached the end of this video, if you're quite a self-aware person, it's very unlikely that you have these personality traits. It's still worth mentioning. These two traits that I'm going to mention are based on personal opinion and observation only. Please take them with a grain of salt, and also realize if you do have these personality traits, it's entirely up to you whether you want to do something about them. The first big personality trait that I see with people who are struggling to make friends is a mixture of lack of self-awareness and lack of social awareness. To be clear, I'm not talking about someone with a developmental disorder that struggles on the social front, because that would require a very, very different video. These are people that are pretty friendly, usually very harmless. They can talk a whole lot about themselves and overshare a lot and not pick up on the fact that it might make another person uncomfortable. And they forget to ask questions about other people. It's really easy to tell if you are this person. Just pay attention to how much you talk versus how much other people talk in conversations. It should be 50-50, or if it's a new person, maybe like 60-40 or so, you being the 40. The next trait, which is sometimes paired with the first trait, is having a really strong victim mentality, always being in a spot of drama and always venting about that drama to the people around you who didn't necessarily put their hand up to be vented to. Victim mentality is a bit of a political word. I clearly don't mean it in a political way. I mean it from a sense of like little spits and spats here and there, not big traumatic events. And regardless of how you feel about that word, I'm sure that nearly everyone has met someone who has more of a victim mentality than a growth mentality. These are the two big personality traits that I see in people who have personally talked to me about struggling to make friends, or who I've just seen struggling to make friends. I think direct advice on how to move past those personality traits would be a whole bunch of other videos, but I'm sure that if you do some searching around, if you feel like, hey, maybe that applies to me, there's definitely some self-work that you can do. On the other hand, if you're like, nah, very content with who I am as a human being, even if I have those personality traits, I don't care. 100% you do you. And just because you are struggling to make friends, please don't think that that means that those personality traits apply to you. Far more often, it is because finding the right people, putting yourself in environments where you can make friends is very, very difficult, and putting yourself out there is very vulnerable and can be a bit scary. Which is a bit of a different video, but I hope that you like it. For those of you that are struggling to make friends, I want to tell you that you're not alone. It's a very common problem. I get enough messages about it to know that it's a very common problem. It's also something I've been through myself. So just realize that you aren't some individual with this one huge burden on your back. This is something a lot of people go through. Right now is a very hard time when it comes to making friendships as well. So don't beat yourself up if you're not putting yourself in a lot of opportunities to make friends. Put your health first, of course. If you liked this video, I am going to have a link to a playlist on the screen that is a full self-care and self-love playlist. I think that's a really good place to start to get yourself into a good headspace to be making friends. I don't believe in the saying you need to love yourself before anyone else can love you, because that is silly. I think being loved by other people and feeling loved in your life is very, very important for your well-being, and also is kind of important in order for you to love yourself. So I'm gonna have that playlist linked on the screen. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you soon.